Hello, and welcome back to the Audible Waters podcast. I am your host, Ralph Jesperson. Today, I am finishing up my three-part series based on the three dreams I have had about another U.S. Civil War that is coming. I share these because I believe God is warning me about something that will inevitably come. I have had other warnings in the past about things that were very bad for the world, which did come to pass, and have made videos on those three things that you can find on this channel. And so here is my third dream and how I interpret it in a form that you can read or listen to or both.
I had a dream of a futuristic sci-fi civil war breaking out on June 12th, 2021. This war started suddenly and very violently. There were many casualties on both sides, and hopes of a quick victory faded very fast, just as they did in our last civil war. My ex ended up on the other side in my dream. Two things soon became big in this war. The first was spying, because the war soon took on a defensive nature as offensive attacks caused very high casualties on the side attempting to attack. I saw a woman open up a secret portal to the other faction's territory, and have a big guy dressed in their clothes walk through it to guard the other end of the portal while pretending to be a defender of the other faction. The second was big high-tech bioweapons. They represented enormous monsters in the dream capable of inflicting huge casualties in offense, though they were designed for defense. They were reserved usually for defense to protect the people and assets already under a faction's control. So a major strategy in this new war was trying to convince these monsters to switch sides. If one faction could gain control of all of the monsters, the other side would be forced to surrender without invasion. I woke up as one of the biggest of these monsters was attempting to convince my faction that it was sincerely desiring to defect, and was not attempting to spy on my faction for the other one. The leaders were hesitant to believe it, though they really wanted its power on their side, so they were split in their opinions.
Lots of thoughts came to me upon waking, assuming that God is giving me hints of where this new civil war will actually be heading. My thoughts are that this war will start very suddenly and surprisingly violently, with both sides hoping for a quick victory. The initial casualties, which will include a whole lot of civilian or neutral people, will be so high that the people will demand a defensive posture, and the leaders on both sides will cave into this. The result will be continuous, very small skirmishes on both sides as they test the defenses of the other, looking for weaknesses. They will not find many, and so most of the armies will be entrenched in high-tech trenches with very little movement, so no blitzkrieg in this particular war. This will result in a paranoia that is so high that it is like none of us have ever seen in our lifetime. We are already seeing that starting, but it will get far worse. Big Brother will emerge to catch spies as each side looks for weaknesses, and there are far less casualties from finding them through well-placed spies than in sending out squads to almost sure death just to try to test the current defenses along the front. So expect freedoms to be curtailed to a degree so severe that everyone complains about it. But do that too much and you will be arrested and charged basically as a co-conspirator. Culture will change very quickly and very severely as a result, and much of that will actually be permanent. So, expect a long drawn out war that is very paranoid and takes on spying as king in nature. Lots of press covering the skirmishes and lots of videos of the casualties, which will almost entirely be on the side attempting to attack. My ex was not political when I knew her, and definitely was not liberal, just as I have never been myself. So perhaps this points to how the little civil wars which normally accompany actual divorces get amplified into the big one. We will become more divided than ever, and hatred and offense will remain long after it's over. And as I said before, this will divide families along political lines, and divorces will be part of the effect of that. I have many thoughts about the economic consequences of this kind of war. We are already seeing some big tech companies taking strong political partisan sides. Expect those companies to be banned in half of the country, with those assets seized wherever they are located on the other controlled territory. Expect imprisonment to jump to unheard levels of, quote, spies, and expect a kind of ethnic cleansing based mostly on political party to happen on both sides, with people forced out of their homes and put on buses to be shipped into the other faction's territory. Or people may get tired of Big Brother and threats from local militia groups and may just move on their own. Blue will become bluer and red will become redder on our maps. Expect corporations who insist on staying neutral from the beginning to thrive, although it will be difficult. Expect those that do not do that to have their size drop because of the seizures. Expect all kinds of uncertainties based on the fact that all food and raw materials needed for trade and manufacturing are out in the country, which are areas which are the most severely conservative. Expect the map of blue and red areas to be the new maps of Civil War controlled areas. Most of the country will be in one faction, but the big cities will almost all fall in the other. This will cause all kinds of problems for everyone, as one faction controls almost all of the one, while the other controls almost all of the other in this war. Expect tourism to be impacted severely again. Paranoia will rule the day, as will the gun and now the drone. Expect all kinds of weirdness in border areas and expect neutral zones between them in order to keep casualties down. Expect free trade and free movement in our country to come to a screeching halt. Being politically neutral will be necessary in order to cross borders, and even then you will be eyed as potential spies and will be subject to things that make airport security look like a walk in the park. So distance yourself greatly now from both political factions, and you will be much more useful to a God of mercy later. Time to learn a great truth, that blessed are the makers and maintainers of peace. This is what the word says. It is true. Replace your political biases with a love for all people, regardless of affiliation, and even for those people in the militias who will be killing and doing acts of pure terrorism. This is going to be a great storm with 50-foot waves, and it will be easier being out at sea where the factions are not in control than on dry land where they are. And the biotech monsters may be a literal thing that emerges, or it may point to the changing characteristics of war. The nature of war has changed greatly over just the last 3.5 years. It has changed in Ukraine from lots of infantry hiding in trenches from artillery to a front line of a no man's land where if you're spotted by a drone in Ukraine, and they are everywhere along the front at any time of the day, you will have a grenade dropped on you from above into your trench, or will have a flying grenade flown right into you kamikaze style. If you should survive that, getting you back behind the lines for medical treatment is almost impossible because of all of the drones. Big drones drop food and ammo to troops hiding in basements in this no man's land. And offensive actions means going out into the open, into this killing zone. Take that kind of technology and put that into the US, where we have all the characteristics that I saw in this brief dream back before they even existed, and add the current AI craze with its potential on the battlefield, and the monsters could represent tech companies led by CEOs of various current political preferences. It is impossible to predict how all of this will steer the course of the new Civil War, which will be more Cold War than hot because technology is moving so fast. In 6 months, what is going on in Ukraine could have changed so much that what I just stated may not even be accurate anymore at that time. And so, this new war will not be one of tanks and airplanes and ground troops in the way we have become accustomed to. It will be about protecting our infrastructure and the lives of our soldiers and the public, and destroying the other side's offensive weapons at all costs. Power lines and water supplies and food convoys will become obvious targets. In Ukraine and Russia, as I write this, both sides are aggressively going after each other's power plants and substations, with plenty of power outages on both sides. I would expect no less in our own civil war, as our liberal democratic ideas about not targeting civilians will quickly go right out the window. The militias will not care about such things, only victory at almost any cost. I note that these are my opinions based on the current knowledge I have, but I do believe that what I saw will come to pass with the overall message of spying, fear, and new high-tech monsters of some type becoming a reality. I am just attempting to explain how this would work if it starts soon. I do not know when it will start, but based on other dreams, I do expect to live through it and still be alive when one side or the other surrenders. And so I have made this video so that you can have time to pray and seek God for wisdom today on how to practically prepare for what is coming. This, I believe, is New Testament prophecy like that from Jesus warning about the sacking of Jerusalem so that believers could flee when the signs appeared back then, or Agabus warning about a coming famine that relief will need to be prepared for in advance. And so, in both cases, it was.